Hello, I'm Robert Addams, and I'd like to show you how you can get the best out of your stretch card trellis die. And what we're going to do is use it to cut some beautiful cards like this. It's nice and simple to use, just takes a little bit of time to set up. And I'm going to be using the Big Shot to cut it on. So the Big Shot, the little Cuttlebug, those smaller machines you can quite successfully run through the cards and make it like this. If you've got the Grand Caliber, it's a bigger machine. You could do things slightly differently. You do it your way, but I'm just going to show you how I would use the die to create these beautiful cuts. Okay, so I'm going to set up my my machine, and I'll begin by showing you how we lay the die over the card to create the cutting edge. You'll notice that you get two parts in the die set. We've got a left and a right, and I'll explain why we do that. And it just gives you a much more beautiful cutting edge when it cuts, because we've got what I call the front part, and as it cuts in, it embosses, and I just think that's the lovely part. So when we have these stretch cards, we get effectively 8 faces coming towards us, and by switching 2 at the front, 2 at the back, it just creates a really beautiful and professional looking card. Don't worry if that sounds a little bit complicated now. I'll explain that as we go through the video. So we're going to start. You can separate the dies, take them out of the packet, just pull them apart, just wiggle them and they'll separate. You'll need them in 2 parts, and they will leave a little sharp edge, so again you might want to just file that down or work with it if you're happy to do that. I know I am, but if you perhaps had children with them, you might want to just file that down. Okay, so let's start by showing you how we use the dies, and then I'll cut it, as I said, using my Big Shot cutting machine. First thing we've got to do before we use the dies is to create our panels to work with. And what we're going to do then is just print these out, cut them out, and then, as I said, we'll apply the die to them. But once you've got to this stage, a couple of points to note. We can just about, I can see them, you probably can't on the camera. Got my 2 little red dots, they're going to be to line up for my cut lines. And so the first thing I'm going to do now, so before I do anything, is just fold this in half. Bring one side over, like so. Just line that up nice and accurately, if we can there. Just pop that over, and that should line up with the first, pretty much so, with our first set of curves there. So you can see it just more or less lines up in the middle there. It should go pretty well close to that. Okie dokie, line that up again and just put a little bit more crease onto it. So that's the first thing, and what we create now are 2 panels like this. One will fold one way, so one like that, and the second one will fold over like that. So when we put it together, we can cross it over. Now, the reason we're doing this is because as we make this card, I pull this like this and make it into a shape like that for you. Let's hope it holds there like so. You're going to get a number of faces, like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're what I call the ones which face you, or the ones that the people see. But as we hold it like so, we've got to create a nice cut here and here, and then also a nice one on here and here, because that's what you're going to see. I'll hold it like that for you. That's what we're going to see on the inside. So, confusing as it might appear, basically it explains why we've got 2 lots of dies. So let me show you how. Because when we cut with these, they produce a beautiful beveled edge as well. I've got a little example here to show you, and you can see that the bevel now looks really lovely on that. And on the other side, although that's on paper, it's just not quite so lovely as you get from that cut there. So what we're going to do is make, on this particular card, we're going to put the rounded one on here. We're going to cut once to here, second one there, then we turn this over, and that's why we use the other die, and we pop that onto there and that one onto there. So effectively, when we have that's all put together, when we have our card like so, what we end up with are what I call the faces here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're the ones which you see from the front, and so they're the ones that we want to have looking really, really beautiful. And by allowing that bevel and emboss, we get what I call the finished surface on there. So you can see now, if I just sort of gently slide this one apart, that might explain it. And again, which is why I'm going to use this. If I show you with this example, I know I'm sort of labouring the point slightly, but I hope that that's going to make it more applicable to you. Let me just clear the decks. So again, if you imagine that we were cutting, I'd have gone once, twice on there with this die, and then what we've got to do is, because those are our faces there, we have to open it up, put it through the machine, and then we use the other die here once, twice, and then that will create our edges that come towards you. So what we've got, if I show you on this example here, is our two front surfaces here, and we've got our two on the back as well here, and they're the ones which we see, the viewer sees your card, and we want to make those obviously as beautiful as possible. You're making a lovely card here. So let me just show you with the die. If I place that one on there, you'll see we'll cut those two to there. Then obviously we'd have to turn this around, but this one then creates the cuts there. That gives us our lovely embossed feature on the card. So with our left and right, we can create that. Okay, so I'm going to go on now and do the actual cutting and show you how we feed it through the machine. Right, the first cut that I make is at the end here on the largest part. This is probably the trickiest to get through on the smaller machines. So if you've got a grand caliber, you're absolutely flying. But with the smaller machines, like the Big Shot, you're going to need to just take a little bit more care on how we set it out. Okay, so let me explain. What we've got here is what a single cutting edge along this part here, and I'm just going to align this up. Now the first thing that you'll notice is that you get lots of spare on the top. Don't worry about going right up to the edge here. You don't want to do that. You want to allow a little bit. Be a little bit generous, add a couple of millimetres so that there's enough to bite into. We've got lots of card here. So you want to come down there. And the other thing to do is these create the edges here. Let me just sort of bring one into shot, albeit upside down for you. You can see there that we get these edges. That's created by the areas that we don't cut. Now we want to get these at 90 degrees, i.e. we don't want this to be cutting like that. I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, or like so. So we just try and create our edges here. The tip here is really where your edge ends the cutting, so I'll just pop it there. I can see that's nice and square there. I've got a little bit around here, and I've lined up there as well, so that's looking good to me. The next thing to do is just tape this down. We don't want it to move too much. I'm using a little bit of drafting tape. Masking tape's a bit, if you can get hold of drafting tape, it's better. It's not as sticky as masking tape. Don't press too hard on the paper, but that just locks it into position. And what we're going to do is just continue now, put one on there, on here, and then we'll have to fold this over, and obviously that would be laid out flat, and then we'll put those two on there, because they're the main front ones that you see. Okay, but we've put that one in, we've anchored it down, and that's ready to cut. So I'm going to just prepare now with my cutting machine, and as I said, I'm using the Big Shot. This also works on the smaller cuttle bugs as well, and equally as well on the grand caliber, but you said you won't have to be quite so accurate with the cutting as I'm about to show you. Well, not actually the cutting, but the placement of this. Without further ado, let me just show you what we're going to do and how we do it. I'm now ready to put this onto the machine. I said I've got my Big Shot here, I've got the main plate under here, my shim sheet, solo thin on this one, and my first plastic one here. And the next thing to do is get preparing for the cutting. Now you can do this one of two ways. I'm just going to fold this over like so. Because of the narrowness, this will go through our Big Shot and our cuttle bug, and we will pop this over here and keep this a couple of centimetres away from the plate there. I'm going to fold this in half, and there's two ways of cutting. You can either have the blade cutting through and into the bottom plate, or I prefer it happening on the top plate. So I'm going to just fold this over, and so we're only going to come down to here and just clear that, so this doesn't affect the shim. Line it up there and just pull it back. Give yourself a good couple of centimetres. This allows the roller to bed in onto the plate there before it starts hitting it. You don't want it to go too soon, towards the edge. Make sure that's all lined up there. Then up comes my plate like so. You can see that's well worn and well loved. That's going to go on there. Feed it through the machine. I'm going to just turn my handle and I'm going to come up, and as I start to, if I let go, you'll just see it ping a bit like that coming back. I can feel the pressure coming on. Hear the cracking. Do not worry about that. Turn that handle and then you'll feel it just relax as it comes off, and then we just come back and cut it. This is the hardest one. It's the first one that we've got to do here. Now I'm just going to take that up from there, and you'll see now what I quite like about this way is you know that it's definitely cut. We're putting a lot of pressure on this paper. We're having to go through twice. As I said, this is the hardest one that we have here. Okay, so let me just show you the best way of releasing the die. So my first cut's come through and we've got a lot of pressure on this. You can see sometimes the plate will just drop out, but in this instance, because we've got a lot of detail work here and the die itself is just clinging on a little bit, what we've got to do is release it. So you'll find as you use the die more and more, it kind of cuts a little bit better. So the first thing to do is separate the die from here, and I'm just going to separate this over here. Begin by removing your masking tape and actually freeing up, because this is also keeping it down and in position for us slightly. Incidentally, when it comes to taking it off your paper here, just go nice and slowly, nice and slowly, nice and slowly. And if you feel it lifting the paper, just stop and come round. This is why you don't want it too high a tack, or else it will just take the surface off your paper. Move that out the way there, and then what we're going to do is just pick this up, and you can see I'm just beginning to release it here like so and pull it through just like that, and you can hear it, so it's going shh. What you can do at this stage, if I just again flip this over for you like so, is I begin to just run my pokey tool as it were through it. You see I'm just running along. That's nicely releasing it, boom, and the plate is out. And then we've got a few stuck in there. They'll just very quickly and easily just pop out for you. The last little ones there. Again, just get those out and remove that. And there we go. Now we've got this bit hanging here as well. All you need to do with that is simply cut in with your scissors roughly to the half line. The next cut that comes in is going to sort that one out there. And we're going to just join up from that part. And there we go, that's the first one. It's got all the lovely embossing on it. So the next thing to do is give this a good old shake, get all the bits out from it, and then we're going to stick it down again and just line up the next one and work along the next cut. So the next thing to do is just bring this die back in again. Remember the curvy bit just here, that kind of taily bit? That shows us where the edge of the cutting blade is. It's just in 1 millimetre from there. A nice straight line so we can create a good line there. And again, you can see that it's easier with the crease, that we've got our little line there. And plenty of room along the top. We're not worrying, it's only a couple of mil. Again, my tape going down just to hold the die in place. Don't rub it too hard and don't have it too sticky, and that's a lovely position. You'll notice these curves are all just slightly different, but this will create the uniform curve here. So you may find that you've got a little bit more. If I just tip that up to the camera for you, you might find you've got a little bit more along the top than other ones, but the camera's not really picking this up, but I've got a good couple of mil there, 2 or 3 mil. It looks like I'm closer to the edge than I am. Don't get too close to the edge because it will distress the paper and sort of try and rip rather than cut. So do give yourself a little bit of space there, and you've got loads of room here. Don't worry. 2-3 mil is absolutely how it should be. So that lines up there. That's cutting there pretty well in the middle. So we're ready to go through the machine again. Right, I'm ready for the next cut, and now what we can do is just open it up like this. We don't need to fold it because it would just give us a double width on the card where we don't want it. I'm just showing you this way again. We can just run the whole thing through like that because we've only got to come up to this point, and that's before that starts to come out over the edge there. So as soon as you feel that drop and come off the die, you'll feel it sort of come off the pressure release, and then we just go back out again. We can't go all the way forward because if we'd hit this against the side. Now again, I'm choosing to, my preference is to cut this up this way up. Again, that's why I've got the tape holding that into position that way. And if I just bring the plate out, a goodly amount on here just to allow us time to get to that die. We don't want to be too close to that edge. Your best cutting power is on the ends of these here, the rollers where they're locked in. So if you have this close-ish to the edge but not too close, because we want to be able to go through and allow for this part here, which is hanging over, we don't want to sort of plough into that and squash it. So we're going to come back a little bit to allow ourselves a safety margin to come down, but just make use of this cutting area here being closer to the end of the machine there. So again, I'm putting my plate on, well-worn machine. These ones get particularly curvy, so I'm curving it up the other way, lining that on there. I'm just going to pop this in till it comes there, and again, I can hear it just cracking. That's a good sound. It's going to go through the machine. It's going to just clear. I can feel it jumping. You may have seen it. And I'm not sticking out too far there. Back again. And let's release that, and we can see a lovely cut as we come through there. So it's the same procedure now. I'm just going to flip that over. Let's pop the machine out of the way and leave that there for the moment, and just get rid of the tape off of your die here. Again, what we've got to do, that's in position there. If you just pull it back, you can hear it like this, it just cracks. Can you hear that's just come up nicely there? You can just tease it off gently like so, or as I said, I tend to, if I just flip that over, I tend to just use my pokey tool through here and just run it. See, boom, that's just dropped out beautifully there. An easier cut for the machine to make, so that's dropped out. I've got nothing to poke out the way there. I've got some awful scissors here, but a more accurate pair, you could just, or with a craft knife, you can see how close I was to joining those two edges there. And I've now got obviously that bit to get rid of there as well. So with my trusty scissors, I will just come in and nip that out the way. And I've got a little bit sitting there, and I'll just chip that away with the card. These two are now cut and done. Well, I've turned the paper over, so we've now, or card rather, incidentally I've used about a 220 GSM, 250 actually this one, to work on. I've got this one to put in now, and so again I'll just line that up. That bit goes to there, that just lines up over to there, couple of mil at that point, and then with a bit of masking tape, drafting tape rather, just hold that die into position just so that when I'm moving it around it doesn't drop out. And again, back into the machine. So we're ready to do the next cut. Again, you can see I've got that on there, and I'm going to turn it over and just pop it this way because we're now doing the other one. And again, we're just going to run that through the machine. I try and keep this on if I can. It probably makes no difference, but I have found sometimes if it hangs over, it puts a little bit of stress on the card, so it's nicer to capture the whole lot in there. Line that up, begin to push it through, and again I can feel it biting there, so just turn the handle, and as soon as that clears, which I have, you can hear a nice cracking noise. That's all the plastic and the bits doing their job. Pull that out, and there we go, that's another cut there. Now, a couple of things to warn you about, and although I have actually done this on purpose, I don't know if the camera can pick this up. I've got a few little dents in here. If you've got to keep everything clear, don't leave any of these little bits like this lying around, because they will indent or press and make a shape. Now you can probably get away with that, but that's something to warn you about. You've got to be a little bit careful that everything, the surface, all the bits are nice and clean, or else it does create a few problems for you. Right, I think we know the procedure here now, and let's get rid of the tape off of there. I'll just gently move that off, and again we can just crack that one like so, and it'll begin to separate. And then at this point it might well drop out, depends what you're using. Mirror board, it tends to just plop out. Card, and a little bit trickier, and again flip that over, pop my pokey tool underneath, and just gently ease everything out. It will come out. There we go. And that's just still hanging on by a little bit of masking tape. I should have cleared that totally. As usual, I've got those little bits hanging there. I've got one little one in there. Get rid of that. Well, that one's come away. And again with my scissors, just nip that to get rid of it. And then the final cut, we're going to line up and do the same with that one there. Righty-ho, this is the last one to do here. I've taped that on. I'm just tipping it this way to show you. That's going to line up here and give me a bit of a gap there. And I've also got to allow the very end one, that's just going to come over to the end here. I'll just get that out of the way. And we can see that will give our final cut there. And this one just shows nicely, this shot, how much I'm allowing there. A good couple of mil. Just, don't get too close to the top. Just come down a little bit. Let's be a little bit generous, and that will just allow a beautiful cut to go through there. That just turns over, and again make sure everything's nice and clean. Look, you can check, see my plate here, see those squares? That's what gave me the problem last time. So just make sure everything's off from there, because if you don't, those will just be little nuisances to you when you come and do the card. Okay, I'm just going to pop that one back a little bit, give myself some breathing space, run that through the machine here, let it clear, and then back the other way. And again we can see a lovely cut. That one's come away, and we just simply separate this. So standard fare now, just get rid of the tape off the back nice and carefully, so that's out of the way. Might as well remove it totally, and then just bend the card back slightly just to help it on its way. You can feel this nicely separating, as I said, just to really make things a little bit easier. I tend to turn it over and see what I'm doing, and just slide, let me get that out of the way, just slide the tool in between the two like this, and it just beautifully comes away, springs out. Again, all the bits left in there, and my final bit here, and I'm going to just use my craft knife just to cut in, and see that gets rid of that part there. And last finishing touches, I'm just going to cut out the little bits there, and there's one here as well, right from the start, and clear that, and there we go. So that's ready to go, but the next thing to do is the cutting. We've got to put 2 cuts. 2 are going to come from the top and 2 from the bottom. So that's our first trellis panel done, and we've got to repeat the same again for the second one. And remember, we'll have just have a look and see, 2 will be, there's 4 of them have to be the main ones, and I said these 2 have the indents there. If I pull that round, we can see we've got the rest of it there. It just looks beautiful now. That lovely trellis edge and all that lovely embossing just works on this edge here. That's me just being fussy. You could, if you want to, just plough on, but I just think it looks nicer doing it that way. So there we go. We've got that far. Now we've got to put the cuts in. Now, if you should have your little red lines, just dots just down the bottom here, just showing you where to go. And if you want to, you could measure in. We're going to just draw, rather you could draw a line, but I'm just going to cut down with my ruler and just slice in. So 2 lines are going to come from the top here, and on the second panel, which I'm going to go ahead and make, I'll just bring 2 in from the bottom. Okay, I'm ready to cut now. Now my little dots down there, this would have started life about 80 mil, so I would have gone down 40. You can almost do it by eye. I'm just going to pop a line there. That's really where I want to go with that pencil line there. I'm going to do my first cut, and these are the 2 from the top. So just 1 in there, like so, and that just slices in nicely between those 2 parts of the panel there, and then slide that along, and I've got the same again to do for this one here. So again, line that up. And just, you could measure it out if you want to do it accurately, and just work out your, just beyond the halfway point. Make sure that cuts nicely. And again, I've got my 2 halves here. So I've got to do the same again now for the other side. So that's my panel there. The 2 lines coming from the top, and the one I've done here, 2 lines now coming out from the bottom, and we're going to simply just slot these together. They make an L shape, so I slot the 2 top panels in first. Incidentally, on the, if you're working from the CD, you'll find that these are text editable, the inserts there. And again on this, I'll just slot these 2 here. This will also work with the template which we've got, so if you're not a computer person, you can use that. Slide that together, just give it a good old squeeze, and you'll see it kind of naturally forms its own shape, and it wants to spring out. And there we go. I mean, that really is a beautiful, beautiful card. You can see we've got something that's just really quite special here. And there we go, we've got a beautiful card. You can embellish this and work onto it if you want to. And we can also put an arch on this as well. And I'm just going to show you a little handy hint for doing that now. Now with the archway, we've got a few golden rules. We can have it right the way across the back. It's the only time it's allowed to cross 2 panels. But normally we just follow one of the sheets of paper. Now you've got this beautiful trellis here, and the last thing you want to do is be covering it up with this, but what I've found, I'm using some glossy accents here, and I use this for putting the words down, because we could actually use our dies and put, you know, happy birthday or anniversary on there as well. But what I have found is that with the glue, that we can now just stick just a tab of it on the top part here, and it just chips onto there like so, and a little bit to here. I'm trying to do this with the camera and hold it, but I'll let that just bite, as it were, for a second. But you can see the effect is that it's just almost like it's balancing, it's perched on the card there. And that's quite strong. That trellis is actually stronger than it looks. You get this lovely arch as well. And that's a great way, if you want to, putting the greetings message on. And not actually detracting from that beautiful trellis. So there's enough of an edge along the top there to allow you to do that, and it's strong enough to hold it. And this also helps you, getting your card to the size for an envelope as well. So there we go, that's an overview of using the stretch card trellis, and that shows you how with a little bit of time we can just build it up and actually make, I think, quite stunning and beautiful cards. As ever, just keep everything nice and clean when you work. Watch out for those little stray bits, because a lot of them come out from the trellis here, this lovely lattice, and if they go through the machine they will indent the card, so that's sort of a watchword for you there. Apart from that, just take your time, and as I said, my thing would be, if I had to remind you of anything, allow a couple of mil from the die from the top. Don't try and go right to the top of the arch of the card when you're cutting. Allow a couple of mil of card just so it sits in nicely. It's got something to bite against as well, and be held by the plate as the die comes through, so it doesn't want to rip or tear. I must say, in all of the ones that I've made, and I've made loads of these now and tested out, I've never had really an accident, but I just think in paper engineering terms, it's better to allow a little bit of play in there to make things go smoothly. And there we go. You can see you can make these on all of your machines, even the smaller, the Cuttlebug, which is a little bit narrower than the Big Shot. It will still all go through and work beautifully with you. Well, I hope this video has inspired you to go out and have a go making your own stretch cards with the trellis die. It really is lovely to use. I just think the cards are absolutely beautiful and they look stunning. It's not difficult to do, just takes a little bit of time to set up. But then with crafting, I mean, that's the fun of crafting. You're creating something really beautiful. And if you've got lots of them to make, say for a wedding, you will be surprised at how quickly you can actually cut it. Take care, and as I say, enjoy your crafting.